Welcome back to the show, Emily. It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
We are going to have the best conversation, and since we're recording it, it will be proof for everyone. So what is...
No pressure there.
No pressure at all. It's all hinged on you. So what's been new in your life, Emily?
Well, I think the thing that's newest and most exciting is I am now officially an assistant editor at Flash Frog. So this is my first editing gig, and I'm learning so much already.
So what is the life of an editor like? What do you have to do?
Well, I'm still new. It's mostly what I've been doing is a lot of the reading as the stories come in, and when there's something that I'm like, ooh, I star it, and then Eric, the editor, the chief editor. He's the editor. He makes the decisions. I think the thing that's been most surprising to me is how much I think it's made me think about my own writing. That's been pretty exciting. I thought this would be maybe a break from my own writing, and I was worried about the balance. But it's actually, I've been more inspired, which is good because I had a couple months where I haven't really been that inspired.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, Tim, we now have a brand new conduit to submit work and get it rejected even faster. I mean,
that's right.
Because sometimes it's really tough. It's tough to let it sit out there for 2 months.
I gotta be honest. I'm glad. I've been very, very lucky. I had something come out on Flash Frog last year, so I'm very happy that this happened before you became an editor. So it wasn't like,
me too.
Emily, welcome to the show. Emily, welcome to the show. So if you happen to pass along a story, if you come across a story about maybe a guy and a dog on a long, Emily, we used to, when we were going to the Tiffin Inn way back in the day in the 90s, in our college days in New Orleans, we had so many people that were coming and going. Art and I felt like we were there like all the time, and maybe Rizmo too, just to throw a random name out there that nobody knows except those who should. And so we kind of thought, what would be fun is if we just sort of, instead of having like a formal interview, just bringing friends along that we've had a lot of fun with, just to kind of hang out and just talk like we do. Cause I'm sure Art gets tired of my Twin Peaks references. Yeah,
I'm sure Tim gets tired of my top 5 process lists. So yeah, everybody's got something.
Can we turn it to Tim for a second and the story that I'm just going to keep bringing this up until you send it out and publish it somewhere. That's the Subaru story.
Oh,
you know the one I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I know that story. I don't think I've seen a version of it in a while. I do. Yes. I've been encouraging him.
Yes. I haven't seen a version in a while either.
That's right, Tim. What gives, man?
Well, here's what happened.
This is an intervention.
This is an intervention. I realized something. I realized I am starting to accumulate stockpile stories that I'm not writing until I become a better writer. I realize that's probably not a good thing to do. But Art, just to fill you in on the latest of this, both of you and Emily have taken the time to read the piece and to give feedback. And Emily gave some feedback, and I, worked some of that in, and then I sent it into X-Ray, which is my next trophy level lit mag that I want to get into. And right before I did, Art, I had a character in there. I think you might remember a character that is sort of off screen, if you will, as this commercial.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the algorithm on my social media was showing me a lot of Don Rickles. And I was like, you know what? I want this character to sound like Don Rickles. 5 minutes before I sent it in, it was rejected in about 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's a choice.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
Do you find yourself, like, when you do that, like starting really extreme and then having to cut back to make sure that the dialogue is still realistic? Because there's that fine line. Like, a lot of the stuff you write, which I love, is absurd, right? So you're kind of setting out this idea as if it's real, but it's exaggerated. But dialogue also has to feel real. So where's that? How do you decide, like, I'm going to exaggerate this dialogue in order to show this character, but if you overdo that, it just feels like it's not real dialogue, right?
I think that definitely comes from my reading it aloud. There will be times, for example, I'm working on a piece right now and I'm having one character sort of respond with yes, and the character who is a little bit more put together is responding with yeses. So I go to a very, very basic level to start with, and then I go from there. So I'm trying to make the character who's doing a lot of yes be a total schlub and his life isn't together, and the person who's answering, talking with yeses. So that kind of level I'll start with, and then it just really comes to me reading it aloud to make it sound a little bit more like it's real dialogue. And I think that just comes from experience, for personally, not that anyone needs this, but personally, that comes from just my experience in the theater of being on stage and trying to say things that sound realistic and how conversation sounds. And, being in certain scenarios, you might be with a playwright that might, be watching you perform their work and you say something a little bit different and they're like, well, why are you saying it like that? And it's like, well, because I don't think people say it like this. And so I love dialogue as a way to convey character. I love it so much to play with that.
It's not that it's realistic as much as it's plausible to the world, because if you've got the world sort of turned on its
better.
Yeah, if it's turned on its head and you expect the characters to speak in a stilted manner because that's sort of what the world is imparting, then someone who comes in and is very conversational in kind of a normal 2025, 2026 way might actually stick out as out of place. I think of Donald Barthelme. That's one of my favorite influences. And I will never be Donald Barthelme. I'm really not trying, but his characters spoke in a very specific way. And I think it was specific to New York in the 60s. And I just didn't get it, so it was strange. But yeah, I could read a story, not have his name on it and recognize it as his, even from the dialogue, because of the way it's put together. What about yours, Emily? I mean, you said you try to pivot back to realistic dialogue. Is that because you're writing from a point of view of realism, like this could happen next door?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think in some of my stories that are more like the more realistic, the stories about grief or some of the longer writing, so non-flash stories, I think are more realistic. And I often in the drafting process, I'm looking to cut back on exaggeration because I'm trying for realism in those stories. But in some of the flash, like I've been playing around a lot more with the absurd, like how do you take something to the edge? And in that case, I don't know, I think that's an even harder, it's pretty easy for me to pull back on something that's supposed to be real, right? Like that feels, I don't know, natural, normal. I live that. But when you're trying to create a world, the kind of absurd world, I think I want the dialogue to reflect the exaggeration. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's something that I struggle with. I love reading the absurd. I think I'm less effective at writing it, even though I keep trying, and every once in a while I feel like I hit that right balance.
There's kind of a tug of war for me between conversationalism and something that's a little more formal. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's casual and formal is the tug of war. I'm thinking of Tim's stories. Most of them have either a first person narrator or even if it's a third person that feels just very close from a psychic distance standpoint. It's just very conversational. And those are the ones that work the best that I've seen, where Tim is having a character basically talk to me almost like we're in the middle of a conversation and it's their turn to talk. And I find that really engaging, and it kind of pulls me in. And I find that when I'm drafting stories, I probably start too formal. Like I don't start that close. And for that reason, it's harder for me to get into the narrative. Where do you fall in that, Emily? I'm curious, in that sort of tug of war between conversational and formal.
Yeah, I think I'm drawn to the more conversational now. I don't think I started that way with my writing, but I like to just drop right in now. And I think Flash has done that to me, right? Because most Flash kind of hits that it's about voice or it's about,
Yeah.
like starting smack in the middle of something.
You don't have a lot of time, right? You gotta hit him in the mouth.
Yeah.
I really, you guys are making me blush by saying such nice things about my writing. But one of the things that I get a little bit nervous about is that it all sort of sounds the same as far as coming from that conversational point of view. And that's definitely something that I would like to try and do differently. You know, we've been talking a lot about that novel that I wrote a couple of years ago, Art, that, you know, we just had an episode about the second draft on. And that's third person, and I haven't done that in like a long time. So it's kind of been a struggle. It's nice because you can kind of like, oh, now the third person knows everything and could talk about everything, but it also feels like, I don't know, I think almost I'm just trying to get as close to writing a script as possible in my prose, you know? Just want more dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, when I read that draft that you have, where it really sung for me was when the psychic distance was really close to the subject matter. If you're standing way back and sort of saying, this is the thing that we're looking at from way over here, that's less engaging than in the parking lot behind the Best Buy, you know, and they're doing stupid things. So there's a lot of parts of that draft that hit well, especially like the first couple scenes where you're describing, what's his name? Colonel, Pickering. What is it?
Oh, jeez.
Is that his name?
Captain Pellersby.
Captain Pellersby.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, his morning routine is told from a distance, but it's almost like you're his shadow and you're just watching him go through his day from a really close distance, but you're not engaging with him. And I thought it was really clever to sort of see that. And then of course you juxtapose that with Madeline Tinn's sort of morning routine, which is very different. So, I mean, there's a lot of good going on there. So I'm trying to encourage you to go back and write your next draft.
Sure. Sorry. Yes.
As soon as you finish the Subaru story, of course.
That's right.
Yes, of course.
Emily's the editor, yes, so she has preference. She gets to pick.
That's right. I outrank you here. I get to pick.
Yes.
Well, one of the things you just said, Tim, was that that your novel is written in third person, right? And that's not usually what we would do, that you usually write it first, close, right? And I don't know if it was somewhere on, I think, Blue Sky about a year ago, somebody, and they probably this was just an offhand comment that some writer that I admire wrote, but it was something about how all of the like highbrow literary journals, what they really want is third person and mostly past tense, right? That they want that's real literature. And this first person present tense thing, like just won't even get you read by this top tier. I don't know if that's true. I have no idea. But of course I took that to heart immediately. And I went into my spreadsheet, and looked at like, you know, of all the stories that I have published or I'm drafting, like 95% of them were first person, and present tense, like dropping right in. So anyway, I've been like thinking like, is there truth to that? Is that just some sort of weird literary gatekeeping? Is it, but then when I do read the stories in, you know, every once in a while, when I read the New Yorker story or I go to Paris Review to read a story, they're pretty classically third person, and they're wonderful. They're great stories, but there's a formality to it.
No, you're on to something, because there's two different goals, you know, with those types of stories. So you mentioned first person present tense and then third person past tense. And those types of stories are trying to accomplish different things. So just off the cuff, I'm thinking third past is implying that the author or the storyteller, let's call it the storyteller because it could be the narrator, has had time to process these past activities and package them in a way that it provides either a moral lesson or an epiphany or some sort of realization, right? And so that is the event that we're going for, is sort of a look back at an important critical moment in human history, in a person's life. And we're going to either learn something or experience something that we're aware of that's coming. First person present is very much the reader discovering in real time with the you know, the point of view character, what is happening. And so that is not a reasoned approach to, or a measured response to what happened in the past. That is, this thing just popped you in the mouth. How do you respond? So, I mean, those types of stories are really trying to accomplish two different things. I think because you live in the Flash world, both of you, it lends itself to that first person because you don't have a lot of time. And yes, you could look back at the past and have a go at that, but it's also more immediate and maybe more viscerally satisfying to get popped in the mouth. So I don't think either one of those is necessarily better. You're just trying to accomplish different things.
Yeah. I think personally for me, with shorter pieces, it's just, I'm working through my own shit. You know what I mean? Whether it's some sort of, you know, crazy hyperbolic thing, or if it's some crazy, like, you know, just some piece, it just feels like it's more personal. And I agree 100%, Art, that it's sort of like, this is a situation that I've been dealt, these moments, that I feel smaller works focus on. It is that sort of like, well, how is this affecting me this right moment? And that's always, yeah, I never really thought about it, because I actually, sitting here, just remembered that I had a reprint come out at the very, very tail end of last year with a long sci-fi piece that I also wrote in third person, which was a lot of fun because the voice, I could really, I wanted to play with a sort of like our town colloquial stage manager kind of voice. And it's telling the sort of like moral tale of this person that is the focus of that story. So yeah, I agree 100%, Art. Now thinking about it, it's so strange. It's so strange that I just write these things, but I never go, why did I do that for myself?
Well,
I'm just like, oh.
But that's the thing. You've got great instincts. And I've said this many times. You have really, really good instincts. If you're going to write a first person story, then you kind of are excluding all of the other people. You're only getting the output from the other people around you. You don't know what they're thinking or what they're feeling. The main character, the point of view character, can assume or make suppositions, but the only person that you're really intimately aware of is the person telling you the story, which is why first person narrators are perfect, unreliable narrators. In third person, especially third person omniscient, you have a chance to bounce between, you know, every consciousness in a town or a country. You can go wherever you want. And I think that lends itself to more, I'm going to say gravitas, but you know, that's a place where you could explore different points of view like that. And you see whole books written from different points of view. The only way to attack that as a first person narrator is to provide multiple first person narrators. So you've got these books where each chapter is told from a different point of view because they're trying to be panoramic, but they've hemmed themselves into a telling style that doesn't allow that. So it's just it's a tool. Again, one's not better than the other. They just try to accomplish different things. I have a screwdriver and a hammer. And if I want to hammer a nail, I need to go get the hammer, you know? So yeah. But I in fact, tell me, Tim, what is the person and tense of that story that you wrote and it was published? The one set in a bar where it's a fight that occurs? And it references music lyrics. I'm not really narrowing it down there.
Hold on a second. I gotta go back. I gotta go back. Hold on a second, because this happens all the time. Art, how do you have so many what did you just say? If I have a hammer and a nail, if I got a nail, I gotta go get, like, how do you pull this stuff out? Where does this come from? I'm over here like,
yeah, he's got a list up.
Well, then I tell you what, instead of typing things into ChatGTP, I'm just going to type things in a text to you and say, Art, how do I take care of it?
It's Chat ART. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
That fight piece is a one sentence piece that was published in Jake, I think maybe 2 years ago, something like that. And that was third person. Yes, it was.
Present?
I don't remember. Golly. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Go pull it up. The reason I ask, and Emily, thank you for drilling down on that, is that I remember that story being a whirlwind of activity, but I think it constrained itself. It wasn't living in anyone's head. it allowed you to see not necessarily different points of view, but you really did sort of hop from point to point in the bar during this whirlwind event. And it was almost like a spiral that kind of circled back to the character that had started it all off, which was this little kid, kid in the bar. It was great. I love that story.
Golly, it looks like it's, it was third person past.
There you go. Okay. And so you needed third person past in order to be able to bounce to all those different consciousness. Because I remember there was a woman who was divorced or wanted to get divorced. And then there was a guy who was talking to her, and that sparked the fight. Like, I don't exactly remember, but there were a lot of different points of view that could have been lingered on, but you chose to just sort of express it as a maelstrom and see this kid basically in the eye of this hurricane, is the way I interpreted it.
Yeah. That was one of those weird pieces that just came along because I heard some gossip in our co-op, and that incident actually happened. So I was like, wow. And then I woke up and the coffee hit right. So yeah, that I'm looking at it now.
I think
good. Groovy.
When we're reading, right? And I'm thinking back being an English major and being an English teacher for so long, like we think about the intentionality of those things, right? Like, okay, what's the tense? What's the POV? Who's the narrator? As on the writing side of that, I can't think of a time when I have intentionally made a decision prior to writing about those things. Like I can think of a few times when I've finished writing and just as an exercise, I've said, okay, what happens if I change this to third person? Or what if I change from third to first?
Yeah.
But never have I said, okay, I'm going to write a story and I'm going to put it in third person past tense because I want blah, blah, blah. Like whatever, like, right. So you just write, it comes out as it wants to be, but then maybe the intentionality, I mean, maybe I should be thinking more about it. Like when something's finished.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is actually an epiphany moment because I think I've got a couple stories right now that I like them in theory and I just can't let go of them, but they're not working. But maybe that's it. Maybe I need to just try throwing it in a different POV.
It's a good trick.
Wait, so you're telling me you have your own Subaru piece? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, because if you don't publish that soon, that is all mine. I am writing a Subaru.
Perfect.
Nice. I think you're right, Emily, and I think it's absolutely appropriate to not think about that in the first draft. Like, I am not advocating at all people should sit down and organize their outline and go, what is the tense and mood? So I think it comes out the way it comes out, but definitely in your case, if something isn't hitting or if you're like, trying it in a new, tense and point of view is a perfectly valid way to see if you want to see that in a different approach. And now that we've kind of teased out what some of the features and benefits are of the different ones, if you're looking to increase psychic distance where you want to get further away from a topic, obviously you'd go to third person. And even within third person, you've got limited omniscient where you're really constrained to only one character. So it's like fake first person. Or you've got that omniscient, which is I can go anywhere I want and talk about anything. I find that third person omniscient to be a little off-putting. It feels stuffy and old style because you see a lot of that from like the 1800s and whatnot. Third limited feels enough like first, but still gives you the distance you need to be definitive about characters that your main character might not really know, something definitive, but you can do it because you're in third limited. So yeah, it's just whatever tool you need to take out of the tool belt. That's the one you got to use.
That was wise.
Yeah. I just love the immediacy of first person. And I think that's why I do most of it in first. And because it just feels so much more like tuned in to the narrator and giving us that sense of like, I need to make the change or this change is happening to me. And, I can't help but think of this. I think this is kind of indirectly related. The reason that I tend to do first person, I remember way back in the day, like my 20s or my 30s, probably my 20s and 30s, maybe a little into my 40s. I definitely was the person that was like, I can't wait to make $1 million writing stories about all these crazy ex-girlfriends, only to find out that I was the complete POS in that whole thing. And so that's why first person for me is just so much more interesting because, all these years of ignoring what I was now I get to sort of work it out through some of the writing that I'm doing. And it just feels so much, I don't know. It's like natural. It just feels natural. And third person. Yeah. Maybe I should try that. Maybe that is something to try, is do a little bit more third. What about second person? How about that?
Oh, have you done a second person story before?
That's the one with you, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's dicey because people translate it into first person in their head anyway. And then if you assert something that you do that the person reading it wouldn't really do, it just creates, it like fractures the continuous fictive dream, and it really pulls people out of a story. So it's very dicey. I've seen it done well. I think Calvino has a really good second person story. Can't remember what it's called.
I'm looking back at my spreadsheet. I have one story second that's ever been published. That's interesting. Yeah.
Would you be willing to share the link to that story with us? I'd love to put it in the show notes for folks. Because I think seeing a well done second person story, first of all, they're rare. And then, secondly, they provide other benefits. I mean, what is the benefit? And again, I'm just sort of thinking out loud. What is the benefit of putting the constraint of, hey, reader, this is you performing these activities in this story. So what's the benefit of that?
Yeah, right. It's supposed to make you feel like you're right there. But I think the drawbacks of that or the dangers of it far outweigh the benefits most of the time.
Yeah.
Like the majority of the time when I'm reading second person, it's almost a dare to me as a reader because I'm like, nope, I wouldn't think that, or no, I wouldn't do that. So don't you tell me what I did or what I'm thinking. So I tend to not like it myself. But the story, was called How to Kill a Fisher. It was in Mudroom magazine last year. The one in second person. And because it's a how-to, and sort of like that's why it's the you. So the first thing you need to do is you do this, and then you need to do this. So it's less, I think in that story, if it works, I don't know, you can decide on that, but, it was less of a, here's what you thought in past tense, but it's here's what you should do. Is that,
interesting.
So there's a little bit of a distinction there. So maybe that's harder to argue with. Almost like if I'm telling you how to cook pasta, you should take this out of this. You should put the water here. I don't do any of the cooking in our house, if you can tell from that terrible example. Versus if I had said, like, you went outside and you felt really cold and you couldn't believe what she thought. Like, those things feel a little bit more like, don't tell me what I'm believing. Don't tell me how I'm feeling.
It seems to fit best, just again, off the cuff, if you've got like a disaster story. Let's say that the conceit is that you are in an island in Micronesia and it's a tsunami and you see the wave coming in, right? So the first line of the story would be, you thought it was strange that the tide receded so far into the bay. Right. You could see, old canoes that had sunk, and you remember Josephus had, sunken that back in 30 years ago and you thought you'd never see it again. Oh, and here comes the water. And now the whole story is about basically how do I get to high ground? Because that's something that everybody can get behind. Like you do this, you scramble over this, you try to avoid the whatever, but it's like disaster porn. And so I don't know, that would be something that's really easy to suspend disbelief that, oh yeah, that's me. And I gotta go. Like, what do I do? So I think that would be cool. But other than that, I'm not seeing a ton of,
Do you know Matt Kendrick? Tim, you probably do from online, right? He's like the most amazing,
yes.
Yeah. Most amazing resource in the world. He does courses as well, but his resource page, which I'll send it to you after, Art, so you can link it. But he's got, all of these documents that have lists of stories that are categorized. So I just found one. He's got one on unusual perspectives that I think could be really useful, where he links to about 20 stories, that are in second person. And then he's got about 20 stories in third person plural. So the we, and then also, third person plural, the they. So it could be a really interesting thing to look at, And these are all published, successful stories in those perspectives.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to see that.
I was just sort of looking up some things myself, checking out some things. I forgot I wrote a second person narrative that got published last year in Had, but I remember it very distinctly, writing it as if, you ever been in one of those moments where you're just using a second person narrative, but you're actually talking about yourself? That was kind of the perspective that I had from it. It's the piece is about, this actually happened. I was here in central New York and I accidentally mowed over a snake.
Oh,
and
I love that story.
Yeah, I immediately went back to my childhood. The first time I discovered that my father did not like snakes, I saw him on the opposite side of the yard and he was mowing, and then he stopped, looked in front of the mower, and then went back and forth really quick to eradicate a snake that he had seen. So I, really up to the ante as far as talking about a dysfunctional family, which I shared the story with my father, and I was like, you obviously know this isn't about you, but I'm just using you as this. But when I just remember writing it using that second person perspective, but really actually it could have been first person. And so it was, for me, it was a very weird thing that ended up actually working out kind of good. So yeah. Wow. Huh.
I think the first person present is my go-to, because a lot of the stuff that I really have liked writing lately is so voice driven. And I think that's the easiest way to get that voice across, is in that first person present. And this probably isn't true when I look at all the stories I've loved lately, but one of the things I like about reading first person present is I feel like I'm a part of it. It's active, especially in Flash, right? Because it's short and it's quick. And as you said, something about getting smacked in the face, right? There's something pleasant about that. So I think I'm drawn to it because of, it feels like I'm in it with the author when I'm reading the first person present. There's less distance, obviously. So I think that's what I'm really drawn to, though I think it'll be a good challenge for me. I think this conversation is making me really think about being more intentional about that. I often I'll write something and then I do a lot of revision on it, but I don't significantly revise the POV or the tense usually. So I think that might be a place where I want to start playing around.